Here's a story, something we talk a lot around these kind of issues. The police face legal action after an attempt to record non-criminal hate incidents. Man alive, we've had enough debates about recording alleged hate incidents. This is non-criminal hate incidents involving kids in schools, described as having a chilling effect on freedom of speech. Police officers investigating hate incidents involving pupils have been told to keep a record even when they do not meet the threshold for criminal charges. Schools groups and civil liberty organisations have warned that records were an Orwellian move that could penalise kids for classroom discussions. Harry Miller is co-founder of the Fair Cop group, which combats police interference in free speech, and himself had a non-crime hate incident recorded against him for tweets about transgender people. Harry, good to have you with us, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Fuming, absolutely fuming, mind, I've got to say.
Yeah.
With reports of this story. I mean, you talk about E.T. a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
How wonderful it is to be a child. How wonderful to believe, and explore the universe and everything in it. Well, what we have now, of course, is an attempted erasure of childhood and the removal of that innocence by the police. And it's terrible, but it's groups like Fair Cop and Transgender Trend and Safe Schools Alliance who are having to buck the trend and stand in the way of this absolute onslaught from the police to remove, well, they've already tried to remove womanhood and sex. They've tried to remove everything, and now they're going for the children. They're trying to remove children. So now it will be impossible to sit in a classroom as an 11 to 16-year-old and question and discuss and raise an eyebrow at these ideas which are being put forward. Because if you do raise an eyebrow or question or show any form of antagonism to an idea at all, you run the very real risk of being labelled as a non-criminal hater.
Wow.
That is chilling.
It's incredibly chilling. And it came around, I mean, this was the reason we're talking about it. Thank goodness for the diligence and the intelligence of a young 14-year-old girl who has found herself kind of at the centre of this, because she's got opinions on the difference between sex and gender and things like that. She respects transgender students at school but does not understand them, and is frightened about speaking openly about this kind of stuff because she thinks as soon as she raises this, then somebody's going to note it down. How would it happen then, Harry? Would it be that a teacher would say, her over there thinks this, and then she passes it on to the police, or would somebody even call the police?
It could be a teacher, it could be a fellow pupil, or it could be the parent of a fellow pupil who's overheard a conversation as it's been repeated back as to, what happened at school today? Any of these people can then, they can access the anonymous True Vision website. I mean, that's as sinister as hell, isn't it? The True Vision website set up by the police to report non-crime hate incidents.
The idea that we're even talking about this is absolutely bonkers, right? I mean,
absolutely. And then this has a very real effect, because then that child will have their name recorded as a hater, as the suspect in a offence of hate, even though there's no crime. I've got one of these, so I know, and it says. Crime record, for one thing. It says offence, hate, and then it names me as suspect. And This girl would be named as a suspect in a non-crime hate incident for hate, for simply raising an eyebrow or showing any degree of unfriendliness or antagonism or disapproval whatsoever.
This is extraordinary. And if we thought these were just one-off incidents, I understand in the past 5 years, police in England and Wales have recorded 120,000 non-crime hate incidents by members of the public. So these are people who don't like the cut of your jib dobbing you into the old bill.
No, that's exactly it. And it's quite funny because we've been contesting the College of Police guidance, which came out in 2014. And let me say this, it's hate guidance, but it defines hate as antagonism, unfriendliness and dislike. So if you're antagonistic toward an idea, or you're unfriendly to a particular group, or you don't like and show dislike toward an idea, you are a hater. That's it. You are a hater. That's got to be wrong.
Who came up with this? How did we get to this kind of hysterical frenzy?
I will tell you. I was emailed by somebody within the College of Policing. Who was desperate for us to overturn the guidance. Yeah, and they told me that the College of Policing is staffed by failed inspectors and academics. And that's true. The College of Policing is not fit for purpose. It needs closing down, because what they are doing, they are a hate factory. The College of Policing is a hate factory. It takes disagreement, it takes antagonism, it takes dislike, normal everyday reactions and emotions, and it turns them into hate. The College of Policing is the greatest, biggest hate factory on the planet, and it needs pulling down.
Wow. Am I right in saying you're a former police officer yourself?
I am indeed a former police officer. Yeah,
absolutely. Did you ever, do you remember times when you were asked to go around to people's houses and tell them off for what they were thinking?
The whole thing's absolute nonsense, isn't it? You know, back in the day, we didn't have a Stasi, a Gestapo, or a Checker. We had a police force whose single locus of control was the law, and who did their best to uphold the law and to keep the Queen's peace. Now, the problem that we've got is that since 2002, I think it was, the police are now avowed to not only uphold the law, but to uphold human rights. But which human rights? I mean, I tell you what, they're not upholding the right to bear arms, are they? And an American would say that's a human right. It's absolute nonsense. We need to get back to the police having a single locus of control, which is English, British law. What
do they do with it? So if I ring the police and, you know, I overhear you, Harry, saying something about, you know, Australians or something, and I think there's Harry wanging on again about the Antipodeans. I better ring.
I do that a lot. I do that
all the time. Yeah, particularly when it comes to cricket. And I think I better call the police, because I don't like his. I mean, it's quite aside from the extraordinary leap that somebody who's offended by what they might have overheard, or an opinion, or a dissenting view, the idea of, you know, picking up your phone and ringing the local constabulary. I mean, we can question the individual on that. What do the police then do? Is it this word hate, which seems... A police officer told me, you know, years ago that if you can ring the police and say someone's broken into my house, and they might still be hiding in the loft, and you might not get a cop car out for ages. But if you tell them that somebody has, thrown a sexual slur at you, a hate crime, they'll be round in droves.
Well, not a sexual slur, because the police aren't interested in protecting women. They're only interested in protecting men who pretend they're women. So that's the main point. If you say, I've got a transgender hater in my loft, then they'll be around immediately, no doubt about it whatsoever. But you know, forget the Australians. I don't think anybody's going to report anybody because we don't like the Antipodeans. But if you question any of the new woke orthodoxy, then you are running a very real risk of being reported for hate speech, and that is chilling.
Yeah. What do the police do with that information, Harry? Because it's not a criminal record, but it's I think you said it says crime or something, crime list or something on the.
No, it says crime report.
Crime report. So it's a crime report.
It's a crime report. It doesn't say incident. Crime report. It says offence, not incident, and then it names you as the suspect, and it says that you are a hater. And that's what it says. Now, the police think that this is absolutely fine. Of course, it's not fine. That is a chilling effect. Now, when McPherson recommended recording non-crime hate incidents, what he had in mind was capturing the lunatics who were sitting around discussing wanting to stab a black person. And of course, that kind of non-crime hate incident is worth recording, because it definitely is a precursor to actual crime. But saying I don't like Sharia law, or I don't like Jehovah's Witnesses, or I don't believe that human beings can change sex, That is a world away from what McPherson intended. And the police, this is the police's fault. The police have taken the easy route again, rather than tackling real hate crime, and rather than tackling all those difficult things, they take the easy option by policing our thoughts, policing our emotions, policing our language, and turning us all into this cookie cutter woke citizen that cannot think for themselves.
It seems to be as simple as that. It's hard to form any argument on this. Listen, Harry, thank you. Harry Miller, co-founder of the Fair Cop Group. They combat police interference in free speech. I mean, the only thing I would say to that, and we could have spoken to Harry for longer, is that every time I talk to a police officer about all of this kind of stuff, they also think it's tosh as well. I never met a cop that thinks all of this is anything other than nonsense. On the hate crime guidance, a College of Policing spokesman said, an initial incident may be the precursor to a more serious action or crime, and while not all incidents will escalate this way, it is only by recording concerns the police can assess their seriousness. The police will... Well, so you can't do that. That's outrageous. The police will continue to respond to calls from schools, and officers will use their discretion in responses to specific circumstances. Policing has no desire to unnecessarily criminalise children and young people. Every decision about allegations of crime that involve children will take into account the consequences of those involved. These decisions must address the needs of kids and young people not to be subject to criminal justice processes unless absolutely necessary, but must also support the safeguarding of children, young people, and the general public. And if you take the case of this 14-year-old girl, she's anonymous for obvious reasons, known as Miss B. She has auditory processing disorders and dyslexia, she's gender critical and believes that sex is distinct from gender. And she respects transgender students at school. I don't know how many there might be at her school, but does not understand them. And she's frightened about speaking up. Now, these are comments. I mean, he mentioned there Sharia law and Jehovah's Witnesses and transgender issues. These are views that 5 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, would not have been controversial at all to question any of this stuff. I mean, you're asking 14-year-olds to discuss changing from being a man to a woman. That's high-end controversy. That's massive leap for a 14-year-old's mind. It's a big leap for many of our minds. And it should be controversial. I think that the trans community would also recognise that. So to question it, raise your eyebrows, wonder about it and say, hang on a second, what, puberty blockers in a 14-year-old? Chopping off bits and pieces for somebody under the age of 18 when they've yet to establish the full process of where they might be at. Advice and counselling, encouraging, all of that stuff should be questioned, right? The idea that you might get yourself on a crime list, it's a non-crime as such, but there's a big old list there that you could be added to.